folks. It's your buddy Mike Messier. We're about to go live here. A little wrestling review. Happy Labor Day, and so on and so forth. Making sure I'm actually live here and I'm not just talking into a vacuum. Okay, everybody, how you doing? It's your buddy Mike Messier, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel. And today, as in now, presently, we're going to do a little post-shows wrap-up and discussion. Your thoughts are welcome. You can write a comment if you're on Facebook, if you're on Facebook or YouTube or whatever the fuck. You can also share this video if you like, if you're so inclined. If you're not, I understand. No offense taken. So overall, let's do some overall thoughts, then we'll get into match by match. Overall, I thought it was a very good weekend to be a pro wrestling fan. I had low expectations coming off that big Wembley Stadium show for AEW last weekend or the previous weekend. How could you expect more great wrestling? How could we have our standards so high? But sometimes when you have low standards, you're pleasantly surprised. And I think this was a very pleasant, surprising weekend, whether you lie in the AEW camp, the WWE camp, whether you enjoy all wrestling or pick and choose. I'm kind of a pick and choose type of guy. I lean towards AEW these days for various reasons, but I'm willing to say that the WWE also had a great show in Pittsburgh and Chicago for AEW. I do want to make a point that I think it's interesting that both of these cities that hosted these live big show events are kind of working class cities, cities, the Steel City of Pittsburgh, the second city of Chicago. They're known for hardworking people, hardworking Americans with their bratwurst and so forth. So let's go through this thing. We will start with the WWE Payback out of Pittsburgh. I think they said it was a sellout crowd. I want to say that Michael Cole, the commentator, said something like 14,000 fans. Overall, a strong presentation by WWE. There's so many contrasts between these two promotions, just the way that they present their shows. WWE is obviously slicker in their production. I can see that that's, at times, I can see that a lot of people enjoy that. For me, I kind of favor the old-time grittiness of pro wrestling, the cigar smoky arenas that Vince McMahon used to like to mock. The non-WWE wrestling promotions. So I kind of lean towards the grittier way that wrestling is shown. But for WWE, with their sports entertainment product, as they call it, it was very good for what it was. You know me, I'm not a huge John Cena fan, but he was kind of brought in as the host. I'm not surprised that they did the steel cage match with Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus first. That used to be really something that you would never see from any promotion, is to put a specialty match, especially a steel cage match, first. That was kind of unheard of. But, as wrestling has changed, one thing is for television considerations, it's certainly easier to put up a cage and before the matches start, at least the main show, and then tear it down rather than have to spend, several minutes putting up the cage. Although these days, they've gotten to the point where they can whip up this cage in a few minutes anyway, or just drop it from the top of the arena. So let's discuss this. What did I think of the cage match? I don't think I liked it. I mean, I might have to watch it again. I mean, I thought it was decent. I definitely thought it was good. But I'm not going to sit here and say that this was an A-rated match. And I guess what I'm going by that is I did check out the Bleacher Report website to kind of copy and paste these results as reminders to myself. They gave, Bleacher Report reviewer gave Trish and Becky an A. I might give it a B or a B+. But maybe I missed something. When I started to watch Payback, I did not watch it in live time. I watched it in delay. I tried to stay away from the results and had mixed results staying away from the results. But I thought it was a good match. I mean, Trish, you got to give her credit. I mean, I don't know if she's 45 years old, 46. However old she is, she, defies age. And Becky, coming off having a child a few years ago, that doesn't seem to have hurt her a bit in the ring. And both of these ladies are top legends, at this point. I do still feel that they cooled off Becky Lynch even before she won the title, going back 4 or 5 WrestleManias, whatever it's been now. I feel like Becky could have really been a breakthrough star, even bigger than she's been. It kind of feels like, Becky's best days were before she even beat Ronda and Charlotte. I mean, I guess that's just another person that the WWE cools off because they don't want the talent getting to be bigger than the company. But beyond that, it was a good steel cage match and an interesting way to start the show. I was having a little bit of a Mandela effect moment. I could have sworn that Trish Stratus and Lita had wrestled in a steel cage match as the main event of a Raw. Apparently, they did have a main event Raw match between Lita and Trish, 25 years ago or whatever it was, but it was not in a cage. And I guess I was thinking of this, it was Lita versus Victoria, Tara, in a cage match. I can't remember that at all, but in any event, they were making a big deal that this was Trish Stratus's first ever cage match. I thought she did well, and I thought it was a good match. Let's move on. So I believe the second match on the main show was our new hero here, LA Knight, who's certainly getting over. It's too bad for him that he's kind of reaching this point. I think he's age 42, and in WWE world, he might as well be 60. I mean, I just don't think that the fans are going to be satisfied with how LA Knight is pushed, because I feel that in the WWE's mind, at least Vince's, he's too old to deserve all the attention. But yet, I could be wrong, because they put LA Knight in a situation where he's kind of, in their minds at least, getting the rub from John Cena. I tend to see it the other way around. I think John Cena is getting the rub from the younger guys and staying relevant. He's also a bit of a scab. I mean, no offense to John Cena, but I'm sure he's a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and he's kind of finding a little loophole in going on the strike, I should say, because, here he is doing wrestling, which is not covered by union work. So good for John. He always finds a way to make things work for him, whether it's his dealings with China or the Ford Motor Company or having his fiance sign a 20-page contract to live with him. John always does what's best for John. And here he was as the referee, and the match, I mean, it was solid. I don't think anyone's expecting anything great from either one of these guys as far as, oh my God, a classic. The Miz, you got to give him credit, or at least I do, for having consistent work. I mean, I still think that he discredited himself and the sport with his being eaten by a zombie gimmick a few years ago on one of those pandemic pay-per-views or pandemic premium live events or whatever. So in any event, Miz, LA Knight gets the victory. You could see Cena kind of counseling Miz after the match quite a bit. So who knows what was going on. Also, why does the referee, in this case John Cena, why does the referee need to take his shirt off in order to raise the hand of the victor? I guess Cena just wanted an excuse to take his shirt off to let everyone know that he's still in ring shape. Good for him. I guess he just wanted to bond with another bare-chested man by taking his shirt off. Very good, John. Go away. What was next, guys? I believe the U.S. Championship match was next. Rey Mysterio and Austin Theory. I'll be honest with you, gentlemen. I did zip through this match quite a bit. I did not find myself too enamored with Rey Mysterio and Austin Theory, mostly because of Austin. I do respect that Rey is kind of trying to reboot this Latino World Order thing. I'm not so sure how that's getting over. I mean, the outfit looked pretty good for Rey. Rey's a great wrestler, a legend, but he's getting up there. I mean, he's got to be 45 or 50 coming up. Austin Theory, I still don't see the hype. It's not about wins or losses. I just don't see Austin Theory as much. I don't see what's the big deal about this guy. He just feels like another cookie cutter, NXT to the main roster type of guy. I don't see why anyone really cares about him. I mean, the best thing about him is that he's not Baron Corbin. I mean, you could have a match or a feud or a tag team with Austin Theory and Baron Corbin, and I guess that would be Vince McMahon's wet dream of a booking, but for me, it doesn't do much. But anyway, Rey Mysterio takes the victory, keeps the title, blah, blah, blah. It's interesting that we've kind of, or the WWE has gotten away from Rey Mysterio versus son Dominic, which I think has maybe another round or two in it. Feel free to leave comments if you like. If you don't. The next situation, the Grayson Waller effect. I was fully prepared to, kind of shit on this guy, kind of shit on the Grayson Waller effect, but actually he's pretty damn good. For a young guy, he does have that. I mean, to me, the Grayson Waller, like basically he's doing what Logan Paul could be doing or should be doing, but Logan Paul is making too much money to be in the WWE the whole time. So good for Grayson Waller. He held his own. The guest, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes puts shout outs to, the previous, interview segments of the past, Piper's Pit. He puts a shout out to Flair for the Gold, which I believe was actually his father's, Dusty Rhodes' creation back in 1993 when Ric Flair could not compete for a few months because he just got back from WWE. So they had him be an interview host. So I thought this was fine. And the big reveal, that Cody has all these mixed feelings. And I guess Cody's in this kind of interesting position in WWE here now where he's like a spokesman. He's a talker, more so than a wrestler. He's a guy that's connecting with the fans on this deep level. So he kind of is self-appointed policeman of Monday Night Raw. So Cody brings out the big surprise, Terry Funk retirement, meaning not much of a retirement for main event Jey Uso. Jey Uso gets a big pop. The fans were happy to see him in Pittsburgh. And I guess there's some excitement because now, if he's thoroughly away from the bloodline storyline on SmackDown, we can see if Jey Uso really is a main event player on his own, which would be interesting. The only critique I would have on this situation, I guess, goes right to Jey Uso, and I'm surprised the WWE didn't take advantage of this. This would have been a perfect time for Jey Uso to bust out a T-shirt, a new Jey Uso main event T-shirt of some kind to get some sales. But instead, he was just wearing a very boring gray T-shirt. I don't even remember if it was a tank top, but it was just kind of a bland shirt, no logo, no message, not something that anybody could buy from WWE unless they're selling gray T-shirts now. So it was kind of a wasted opportunity. I mean, I think if there was ever a time where you kind of, pop your own image on a T-shirt, take advantage of the fact that people were excited to see Jay and sell some fucking T-shirts. But hey, you'd have to hire someone like me to come in and make these suggestions, WWE, which you didn't do when you had the opportunity in 2007, but not that I'm upset about it. Moving forth, what was next, gentlemen? I think it was the tag team Undisputed. I mean, all these goddamn titles get merged and unmerged, but the Steel City Street Fights, say that 6 times fast. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defending against Finn and Damian Priest, the members of the Judgment Day. I thought this was a very good match. Great match, actually. Fun. I mean, if you go back in time, 1994, if you find the, Kevin Sullivan and Evad Sullivan against the Nasty Boys, and then Mick Foley as Cactus Jack and Max Payne against the Nasty Boys, and then finally Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan against the Nasty Boys. Look for those matches from early 1994 for you younger fans. If the older fans remember those matches, very similar in feel to this Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn Judgment Day match. Finn Balor as a heel is an interesting thing for me. I don't know if he quite works. I don't know if he quite doesn't work as a heel. I just think that a guy, Finn Balor of his size, who's really a high-flying guy, and by all accounts is a very friendly type of guy, very, equality-minded guy, Finn Balor. It's hard for me to still buy him as a heel, but as he's getting older, I guess he's kind of growing into it, so to speak. But it's still, I kind of feel like he's a bit misplaced, but here he is, and I guess it's kind of clicking, for everybody. People are really getting into the Judgment Day. My buddy Michael A.J. Norris wanted me to point out or compare and contrast these guys, the Judgment Day, to the Bloodline. And I mean, here's the thing with these factions, guys. You put 4 belts on people, you give people a lot of belts, and yes, they're going to look, they're going to look great. I mean, that's kind of like the old Four Horsemen thing. You just put belts on everybody. And so we saw a changing of the guard, and we also saw like kind of a storyline with this JD McConnell or some such thing. I think he's an NXT guy who's been, sniffing the jock of Finn Balor. He comes in and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of interference. Rhea Ripley kind of makes an appearance, looking quite, I mean, she's the big thing now for WWE fans. Everybody's got a, Rhea Ripley fetish. She looked great, though, and she did a nice kind of spear on good old KO, Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens did look like he either juiced or had like some type of blood capsule thing. Terry Funk t-shirt was nice to see. If anyone's keeping score at home, Jimmy and I will be doing a Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt tribute part 2. We had to reschedule that for undisclosed reasons. I cannot disclose the reasons, but we will do on the part 2 of that. So, but yeah, it was a good match. I mean, I think that this was the highlight for me. Tag team title changed. Interesting that Damian Priest is still the Money in the Bank holder, as far as we know, going out of this. So, really good match, and we'll see what happens next. Next, I believe, blah 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 blah. Was it the World Women's Championship? And unless I'm getting the order wrong, but I think it was Raquel Rodriguez. I think they kind of downplayed the thing with her little friend Liv Morgan and the broken arm. Unless I'm forgetting something, I think that they didn't really talk about that on commentary or make that a point of contention in the match. This just really felt like another showcase for Rhea Ripley. As I mentioned, everybody's got a hard on for Rhea Ripley these days, men, women, all points in between. And she deserves it. She's a very attractive woman. She kind of has fit into this mommy gimmick or mammy or whatever the fuck it is. Mommy very well. And she's an attractive woman in the peak of her wrestling ability. And, her cups floweth over, so to speak. And, Rhea Ripley's the hot thing these days. And so it's good to just go with the hot hand. I mean, she won't be champion forever. I will say this. I did have a thought, if you want to hear it. Terry Funk, I'm listening to his audiobook these days. I'm almost done with it. Really great. It's on Audible. It's not read by Terry Funk. It's read by just a professional reader, but the guy does a fairly good job with it. And Terry Funk in his book says that when he was NWA World Champion, his idea was to get all these challengers over in every town. But the difference here with Rhea is she's not getting Raquel Rodriguez over. She's not getting the LWO lady over, a few months ago. She's not getting challengers over. Rhea's just getting Rhea over. So, I mean, yes, Rhea's looking dominant, but she's not exactly helping her colleagues or her peers. So there you go. But yeah, Rhea Ripley. And then finally, the World Heavyweight Championship match, Seth freaking Rollins. I still don't understand all these championships, to be honest with you. It makes very little sense to me that the WWE has unified in years past the World Heavyweight Championship with the Bruno belt, as I call it. I believe it was Randy Orton defeating what's-his-dick, John Cena himself several years ago in that ladder match, but yet here we are, years later, and then Roman Reigns defeating Brock Lesnar a couple of WrestleManias ago. So why in the hell do we have to have another world title? I mean, I thought the whole point of merging titles was to merge them, not to just merge and unmerge all the time. It makes very little sense. But in any event, that's what happened. Okay. So there you go. And I thought it was just I don't know. To me, the Nakamura experience really does feel like this is Vince McMahon's view of Japanese people. And I go back to Mr. Fuji, throwing salt in people's eyes and being diabolical and giggling. I just don't understand, or I do understand. I think Vince McMahon kind of has those, World War II flashbacks. I think Vince McMahon just views certain ethnic groups in a way. I mean, he's kind of outgrown the way that he's treated, the African American people in his booking with Saba Simba and other such things. But I think what you see with something like Nakamura, it's kind of like the if Kill Bill, Quentin Tarantino was directing Nakamura, but there's still this kind of shades of Mr. Fuji in there with the sneakiness, with the subtitles. Yes, he's a heel, so he should have some of these elements, but I don't know. Just given Vince's past, Vince McMahon's his booking, ways or whatever, his creative ways, it just seems to me that it's just not as great as people seem to think it is. So Seth retains the title. The biggest problem for me with WWE really is the commentary. I'm just so over Michael Cole. I have been since he started. I don't think Michael Cole's very good. His, fake enthusiasm grates on me after hours and hours. And tattoo neck, Corey Graves, who tries to come across as if he's some expert. It bothers me. So, I kind of put myself in a bad mood talking about WWE. I'm glad that the WWE is there. I'm glad that people enjoy it. But I kind of had to force myself. I just finished watching this thing today on Labor Day, Monday morning. I had to dig through this show because it's just hard for me to sit there and listen to Michael Cole and Corey Graves with their god-awful commentary. And so overall, I would give this show a B+. I mean, I think it was a very strong show for what it was. Payback traditionally has been 1 month after WrestleMania, but not this case. Here we are in September, early September, so it's no longer a post-WrestleMania. It is past WrestleMania, but it's not immediately past. But I thought it was a strong show. I give it a B+. The guys on Bleacher Report gave it an A+. I think that's ridiculous. But yeah, it was a good show. And if you had to watch one match, I would definitely say the tag team title match is the one to watch. And so on and so forth. Okay, so let's move on. So last night was a really big test, I think, for AEW. I went over to the friendly local movie theater, and there was not many people there. I think that they did not really start selling the tickets for this show. The AEW All Out at the movie theater here in Jacksonville, Florida, they didn't start selling those tickets until like this week. And I think there might have been a lot of fans that have gone to these AEW shows at the movie theater previously, but I believe that All In was not available, and I believe that the previous one, the Forbidden Door 2023, was not available. So I think some of the people that typically buy these tickets for these AEW shows on the big screen thought it was just a deal of the past. I set my reminder on the AMC app to get a reminder, so I did, and I was pleasantly surprised. Also, another pleasant surprise, they actually lowered the ticket price to $12.99. Typically, it's $25 for these AEW shows on the big screen. So, hey, look, that's about half. So that was nice. And I was saying before, I didn't have big expectations for this thing. One thing that the AMC screen did not do this time, which was a little disappointing, they started their coverage at 8. They typically have the 7 o'clock preview hour. They didn't. I did have my phone, and I was able to pick up with the women's 6-man tag, but I haven't watched that Battle Royal yet that apparently Hangman Adam Page won. It kind of seemed like a make-good to Hangman Adam Page after all the stuff he went through with CM Punk. They give this guy a Battle Royal victory in Punk's hometown of Chicago. There was a few little allusions to, CM Punk throughout the night, but not too many, which I think was a good move. So we did have another, this 6-woman tag match. Hikaru Shida, Willow Nightingale, and Sky Blue. I mean, her ass is getting very popular with the fans. I mean, you delinquent wrestling fans are really making a lot of comments on Twitter and Instagram about Sky Blue's buttocks, which she's a very attractive young woman, but it just seems like that's fair ground for wrestling fans, is for all the evolution of the women's wrestling that we're supposed to be seeing. The perverted wrestling fan still makes comments about these young women's and their buttocks, so you're all disgusting and pathetic. But they defeated Athena Diamante, who's back. She's been in and out a few times with disciplinary issues. Hold on. Mercedes Martinez. It's funny because when they announced Mercedes Martinez, I heard the Mercedes name and I got all excited thinking it might be our friend Mercedes Mornay, but she was not there yet, or she hasn't officially signed as far as we know. So yeah, interesting. Athena's on the losing end of this thing. I think people had some big hopes for Athena when she was coming in to AEW, but she's kind of become. She went from being lost in the shuffle of WWE to lost in the shuffle of AEW, which does happen sometimes, unfortunately. Kind of a harmless 6-women's tag. I mean, just a time filler, really. The next thing we saw, I think this match was originally supposed to be on the main card, but it got bumped up to the pre-show, which actually does make sense because probably more people watch the pre-show than actually spend the money to watch the full real show, you would imagine. So the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn, with their 6-man World Trios Tag Team Championships, defeat Jay Lethal, Double J, Jeff Jarrett, and Satman Singh. And of course, the big celebrity rub was the Worm, Dennis Rodman. I thought if anyone was going to have some funny CM Punk references, I thought it could have been the Acclaimed with their rap. I talk so much, I get all froggy, for Christ's sakes. God damn it. So anyway, match was decent. Nothing to sing a song about. Just another, good guys win the match. Let's get to the pay-per-view. So the first match didn't do much for me. I mean, I think that this match was really just a segue into another feud for MJF. But Adam Cole and MJF defeating the Dark Order, Alex Reynolds and John Silver, who were kind of playing the heels in this match. They're typically the babyface. They finally get a tag team title match. It's an ROH tag team title. And really it just seems like, I don't know if MJF is actually nursing any type of injuries in real life. This neck injury just seems to be a storyline shtick. But I'm wondering if MJF might have some nagging injuries, so he's not wrestling singles matches, and they just want to keep him in the loop. So they have him doing this tag team thing with Paige. The crowd is really into this stuff. I'm not really into it. But I do recognize that the crowd's into it, so they did the right thing, and they kept the belts on these guys. And then they did kind of make this Samoa Joe. I believe it was a reference to NXT years ago when Samoa Joe, I believe, didn't he shove MJF in the backstage of NXT? And MJF was just an extra, basically, for a night of NXT, and Samoa Joe gave him a shove. So I think that was a shout out to that. And then I think the next thing is they did this break apart with Samoa Joe and MJF. And Samoa Joe caught him in a front chancery, which is a little shout out to CM Punk and Jungle Jack. So interesting. I mean, I think Samoa Joe and MJF could be a really interesting series. Samoa Joe's a different type of opponent for MJF. So I think that was actually pretty good. If you're not going to have the World Championship match on the show with MJF defending against someone, why not start something with him and someone else? So I thought that was a good segue. Let's see. The next thing we had, Samoa Joe is in there to defend his title against this Shane Taylor for the ROH World TV title. I was not familiar with Shane Taylor going into this thing. I have a feeling he's probably better than he appeared in this match. I don't think Joe gave him much. I think Joe was here basically, looking out for Joe and trying to, get that credibility to be the MJF next contender, so to speak. And so Shane Taylor was kind of a sacrifice in this. I don't think Shane Taylor, whatever he has to offer, really wasn't shown in the best light in this match. And basically he was defeated pretty easily. So Samoa Joe wins that one. Luchasaurus more or less destroys Darby Allin. Kind of a mismatch. Christian Cage as kind of the co-owner of this TNT title. Once again, this was kind of a display for the champion. I was kind of, to be honest, very tired at this point in watching this match. So this match got my full attention. But Christian Cage in the post-show press conference was very funny. Let's see. Miro defeats Powerhouse Hobbs. The big thing with this is CJ Perry comes in. Looking quite nice, to be honest, to give her credit. Um, Hobbs and Miro, really a nice back and forth match. It's good. I think they've got to salvage Miro. Miro's another one of these guys. He did have the TNT title for a while, but like I said before, he's a guy that's gone from the lost in the shuffle of WWE to lost in the shuffle of AEW. But he wins a match. Chris Statlander, I didn't really truly appreciate this whole Zoolander thing. I mean, is it a reference? Statlander, Zoolander? Now I get it. I didn't get it at the time, if that's even what it was. And to be honest, I've seen the movie Zoolander once in my life. I liked it, but I didn't like it enough to see it again. And I think sometimes these wrestlers are very guilty of thinking whatever, nerdy type of thing that they're into, that everybody's supposed to know what it is. And not everybody gives a shit about, the movie Zoolander. So yes, Chris Statlander, I'm glad that she retained her title. She gets this big victory over Ruby Soho. The Tori Storm appears to be turning against her partners of the Outcasts. What's her face shows up with her women's title, and so on and so forth. So it was what it was. I don't think it was a great match. It was a good match. But I think a lot of matches on this show were better than they kind of had a right to be, or we thought they would be. And I think that, these last couple of matches, Hobbs and Miro and Statlander and Soho, were all kind of like that. They were getting better than what we expected. Then we had, to me, the match of the weekend, and I'm not sure what the idiots at Bleacher Reports are thinking. They gave this match a B+. And they gave Trish and Becky Lynch the night before an A+ or an A. Bryan Danielson defeats Ricky Stark by submission, referee stoppage, actually. Big Bill, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, some real stiff whips. I mean, these guys are going to have welts on their body. These guys paid the price. Bryan Danielson stepping up, filling the spot in a way that was supposed to be CM Punk's match. But I think Bryan Danielson, I got to give him credit. I mean, sometimes I don't agree with the things that he says about life or about wrestling, but I mean, the guy is very dedicated to wrestling. And Bryan Danielson, him and Moxley are probably the two best guys that AEW has right now overall. And Danielson in the post-show press conference put over Moxley, but I would put over Danielson. I mean, I think Danielson coming in there, still suffering from an arm injury. I'll get to the press conference after, because I didn't like some of the things that Danielson had to say in the press conference. But I thought this match was excellent. Ricky Starks is really trying to, be a main event guy. I kind of thought that would be as a baby face, but he's kind of, gone back to heel work, so to speak. So it was a great match. Just hard-hitting welts. I mean, these guys really earned their paycheck and so forth. So also, I want to give a shout-out to the Chicago fans. I did a video where I kind of, warned Chicago or asked them why would they chant for CM Punk during the show, and they really didn't. I mean, there was a few isolated chants coming up a couple of matches from now, but for the most part, Chicago was a great crowd for this show, and I guess they kind of figured it out. Like, hey, why should we care about CM Punk? He doesn't care about us, or, he's got his own problems. And they bought the tickets. They might as well enjoy a great show, and they did. Nigel McGuinness announced that Page, it's so silly. Hangman Adam Page wins $50,000 in this battle royal, and they've announced that he's decided to make his donation to to Chicago Public Education Fund. Gee whiz, thanks, Adam. What a great guy you are. I mean, what a way to try to provoke a babyface feeling for Adam Page in Chicago. Adam Page, of course, one of the elite guys that was always against CM Punk. Really the guy that kind of started all this shit with CM Punk in a way. But Adam Page gets to be full-on babyface for the people of Chicago by giving $50K to the Chicago Public Education Fund. So, I mean, I give all due credit, but that's Tony Khan's money. I mean, let's not be idiots here, but just nice, I guess. They're really trying to make these elite guys back in the good graces of Chicago, so we don't have CM Punk chants for the next 10 years. like WWE did when CM Punk left the WWE. And next we have the Blackpool Combat Club. I still have issues with them calling the group that. It's so stupid. There's no William or Steven Regal in the company, but Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. I'm still trying to figure out Wheeler Yuta's name. What kind of name is that? It's just not a great wrestling name. But they defeat Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata by pinfall. Shibata was the MVP in this match. Shibata, I'm not terribly familiar with his wrestling. I was extremely impressed by Shibata. I know that I've missed out on some of the great Japanese stuff. And a portion, the biggest reason why I don't watch more Japanese wrestling is because it's hard to get that stuff in English commentary. And without some type of storyline or some type of understanding what the hell's going on, it's hard for me to enjoy the great Japanese wrestling without some type of commentary. And but I give Shibata a lot of credit. Very exciting wrestler, very unique style, cool look. I'd like to see more Shibata, and but unfortunately, he's on the losing end of this thing. Eddie Kingston gets knocked out by a uppercut, which was kind of a Dory Funk Jr. type of move. So Claudio gets the clean pin. I guess Claudio is the ROH World Champion. See, that's another thing with AEW. They have too many goddamn AEW titles, and then they add another serving of useless ROH titles. So you had Claudio's the ROH World Champion, and Shibata is the pure wrestling champion. Was that it? And then you had fucking Samoa Joe as the ROH TV champion. So how many fucking champions do you need for a company that doesn't have a television presence? It's just ridiculous and absurd. A lot of title people, you know, Sayara is a women's champion. She wasn't defending her title. MGF wasn't defending his title. Could go on and on. The next match, I think, was a great match. I mean, one of my least, you know, I'm not a big Kenny Omega fan, but I do give him credit. He's a great in-ring guy, just not my flavor of coffee, so to speak. But he's in there against Konosuke Takeshita. The Don Callis stuff, you know, kind of shades of Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns over the WWE with Paul Heyman, and Don Callis kind of doing his version of the Paul Heyman gimmick. Takeshita and Kenny, really good match. Kenny kind of selling some previous injuries. That felt like part of it. I thought they did great. I mean, I'm not terribly familiar with Takeshita either, but I was very impressed with this match. And you know, Kenny puts the guy over, and I could be wrong, but I think Kenny lost his match to Will Ospreay at the Forbidden Door thing. So Kenny is kind of putting other people over, which is nice to see. And I thought it was good. The next thing we have is Bullet Club Gold, Jay White, Juice Robinson, and the Gun Boys, or the Ass Boys, defeat the Young Bucks and FTR. This was a really good match. This match exceeded my expectations quite a bit. I wasn't expecting much from this thing. I just thought it would be the typical teammates who can't get along on the Bucks and FTR, and they did play into that, but they really tried to play into the Bucks and FTR getting along. And you know, Matt Buck and Dax especially doing some tag team moves together. Wheeler is in a tough spot in real life because he might be facing some jail time or some probation. He's got that whole thing with the charge in North Carolina, I believe, or was it in Florida? Where the situation happened. I think it was actually in Florida. So I'm a big FTR fan. I hope that Cash, you know, avoids prison time, to be quite honest with you. But if he's guilty, he's guilty. And then he, you know, whatever. But I thought it was a great match. And there you go. So that one was there. You can leave a comment if you like or don't. But I thought this match was a lot of fun. And I think it was smart for the Bullet Club to win. Interesting with AEW, I don't know what type of contract or not they have the Bullet Club Gold, especially Jay White Juice under, or Takeshita for that matter, but they're not afraid to put guys who are not homegrown guys over. Also, to give this show a lot of credit, I mean, you're coming off of All In to All Out, and it's really a lot of different wrestlers were on this show. But we did see a preview of this main event, the AEW International Championship match, Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy. It was interesting because they were in that six-man with each other a week ago, and Moxley, you know, beat the crap out of Orange in the 6-man, and he basically beats the crap out of Orange in the one-on-one match. And this is definitely a match where a guy is stronger coming out with a loss than going in as a champion. And I think Orange Cassidy really deserves everybody's applause. And look, he won me over. I was not a big Orange Cassidy guy when AEW started. I didn't quite get it, but the guy he's got skills, man. I mean, Orange Cassidy does have skills, and he kind of won me over, and he does his own thing. He's committed to his character, and he's got good fire, and this was a good match. Going back to the fire thing, I believe it was in the Seth Rollins match that Michael Cole kind of made a commentary flub. He said something to the effect of Seth Rollins is trying to fire up, and then he said fire out. And basically fire up is somewhat of an industry term, for the baby face doing the Ricky Morton or the Jay Strongbow or the Hulk Hogan when you kind of get your energy back. And so it's kind of an industry term that Michael Cole probably didn't want to say in commentary in the match, but he did, and so he tried to cover it with fire out. Let me talk about this. So props to Orange Cassidy, and to me, and folks, this is just my opinion. Look, I preferred the AEW show. I read the Bleacher Report, and I'm not sure if it was the same analyst for both shows, but they gave the Payback an A+, and they gave this AEW show All In a B+. It really is just subjective. It's you like your thing, I like my thing. I can acknowledge that the WWE did a great show, but many times with the John Cena involvement and Michael Cole and Corey Graves on commentary, it's still WWE, so I'm never going to fully oblige to it. AEW, I just prefer in a lot of ways because it's not WWE. And I was very curious, with this stuff with CM Punk, how Chicago would react. I thought Chicago did a great job. I applaud you, Chicago. You surprised me. And so on and so forth. The press conference, the media scrum, which I also kind of hate that term. It sounds stupid. But the press conference I thought was good for AEW. Christian Cage was hilarious. If you just want the highlights of that press conference, just watch the Christian Cage stuff. I think what's-his-dick, MJF, actually took this press conference off. I guess he had to get his neck fixed or whatever the fuck. But Christian Cage more than picked up for it with the comedy. Statlander comes out there, and really everybody was kind of keeping kayfabe, which I kind of like with these press conferences when the wrestlers kind of stay in kayfabe, the fucking Instagram reporters or whoever the fuck is there kind of ask questions in kayfabe. And then Bryan Danielson comes out and basically destroys the whole thing. Like Bryan Danielson, who had the best match of the weekend, in my opinion, comes out and he's talking about his character, and he's talking about how Ricky Starks carried him and how they used smoke and mirrors to get through the match with his bad arm. And Bryan Daniel says, if you noticed, I never used my right arm. So these wrestlers, and sometimes the sad thing, it's always like the very best wrestlers who give you the best match. They can't help but put themselves over on another level. Like, it's not enough that Bryan Danielson has the best match on the weekend and he's coming after, 2 months of injury. He's got to tell you all the inside secrets, like the chef who has to tell you all the secret ingredients. And Bryan Danielson, I thought he did a shitty job, especially because everybody else kind of stayed in character for this fucking press conference. And Bryan Danielson feels the need to tell us how great Ricky Starks is, to tell us how they covered up his arm injury, and blah, 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 blah. Tony Khan, very, almost shady in a sense, not answering any questions. People are blatantly asking him CM Punk questions, and Tony just doesn't answer the questions. I mean, there was one time when some reporter asked a bunch of questions to Christian Cage and Tony Khan. Christian answered his fucking question, and then Tony, instead of answering the guy's question, just moved on to introduce the next person, who I think was Statlander. So, I mean, I get it. They're probably looking at possible legal action from Punk. I think the most exciting thing is if there is legal action from Punk, then we get to see this supposed behind-the-scenes camera footage of his attack on Jungle Boy Jack there,
which could be fun to watch. But overall, I just think the media scrums are pretty absurd. The best media scrum, to give them credit, is the Mindy's Muffins CM Punk, 2022 media scrum. That's classic entertainment. Here's the other thing, folks. If you're wondering, well, gee whiz, Mike, how can you like AEW more than WWE? It's because I like the fact that there's some reality to it, that the wrestlers don't always get along. They haven't all been trained like indoor puppies. You know what I mean? Like they're outdoor cats, so to speak. They're a little wild. They're a little feral over in AEW. They all haven't had their fucking balls cut off from their crotches. So I like the fact that you can have a CM Punk come in there, be disruptive, get people all worked up, and then leave. That's exciting to me as a wrestling fan. To the fans that just like everybody to get along and go along, that's not what pro wrestling is. Pro wrestling is, just craziness. It's Lance Von Erich pretending to be a Von Erich. It's Gino Hernandez throwing ink in Chris Adams's eye. It's Dick Slater putting Sting's head into a toilet because he took Slater's girlfriend home or whatever the fuck. That's what wrestling's supposed to be. So if you're just sitting there wishing that all these people would go to the performance center and do their bench presses and eat their fucking Ico Pro and play video games like you, the fan, that's not the point. I mean, I think one thing that wrestling fans have a hard time understanding is the wrestlers do not share your middle-class suburban values. They cheat on their spouses. They take illegal substances. That's what wrestlers do. And so for the suburban person who thinks that the wrestlers should just sit around and play video games like they do, you haven't hung out with these wrestlers. I mean, these are guys that will chew each other's gum that they spit on the arena floor just to get a fucking rise out of each other. I mean, they're kind of sick individuals. So, I mean, I think when wrestling fans want the wrestlers to be these cozy, cuddly teddy bears of people, you're just not dealing in the reality of which I live in, okay? These are people, whether it's New Jack slicing open the head of Eric Koulos or Missy Hyatt getting inducted into the business by Michael Hayes, in Dallas, Texas in 1985. These are a lot of times morally reprehensible people. I mean, look, you can cheer Soraya all you want, but I mean, it wasn't too long ago that all you creeps and deviants were looking at her private phone camera tapes, okay? So you're all in on it. You're all disgusting and foul. And that's just the wrestling that we love. I mean, we love the fact that these weirdos, who was that weirdo from a few years ago, that Lars Sullivan individual, creeps like him. I mean, that's what makes wrestling so exciting. So that's it, folks. It's your buddy Mike Messier. Great wrestling weekend, and you can subscribe or not. But that's your wrestling commentary for this fucking weekend. Buy my books, subscribe, like all my shit, and so forth. Ugh. Goddamn ass.